I'll be honest, I kind of miss the amount of personality that the Wii had compared to like the Switch.
Yeah.
The Switch has like this very kind of clean, almost professional look.
It's a post-Wii Nintendo.
But the Wii had like so much more personality. The Mii channel music is a bop. The Wii Shop channel music slaps.
Mm-hmm.
Just so much more character in that thing compared to
Nintendo's building the UI like, oh yeah, you're going to have so much nostalgia for this in 12 years.
I mean, it's Nintendo. Everybody has something.
True.
It's kind of their entire brand in business.
Well, even the GameCube, beyond like the GameCube opening menu, didn't really have much else personality-wise as like a game system.
There was,
but
like
it was a cube.
Thing. It was
True.
It was a cube.
It's cubicle.
Yeah, I suppose more in the design of the console itself than
it was supposed
the
to be look. It was
and the
supposed
controller.
To look futuristic. Yep. The controller still holds up.
Yep.
Particularly if you're playing Smash.
The fact that people 20 years later still use GameCube controllers to play Smash just attests to how well the controller was designed.
And it's their controller from 20 years ago. I got Joy-Cons 2 years ago on my Switch, and they're drifting to hell.
Yeah. they just don't make stuff
like they used to.
Nope.
Well, speaking of Nintendo, they've got I'm sure you've heard the update to the Nintendo Switch Online stuff.
You pay $30 extra dollars per year for like 10 64 games and like a handful of Genesis games and DLC for Animal Crossing.
Are they doing the subscription service thing?
Well, they had been for a while now.
But it was inordinately cheap.
Right.
It was like
20 bucks for a year of online plus the Super Nintendo and NES libraries.
Huh.
But then they upped it to $50 a year, and there is no month-by-month option either. Because if there was, I would pay for an singular month once Banjo-Kazooie becomes available on 64 online.
Yep.
Play through that, maybe try out Paper Mario, and then leave and never look back.
Yeah.
But no, you've got to commit yourself to a whole year, $50.
I mean, Lord forbid they just sell copies of these games for you to buy and have forever for cheap.
Yeah.
They can't. They lost the hardware to do that.
But I mean, like Switch ports of the games.
Well, it's all emulation, though.
True.
And the emulation, from what I hear, isn't all it's cracked up to be.
It's bad.
I mean, the Super Nintendo and NES are all right, but those are easy to emulate.
Because
64.
the hardware required to, like, the amount of resources needed to run a virtual machine is, like, negligible. I don't know how to even compare it. It's like the fact that you can run a game on literal kilobytes of RAM is just like, that's a drop in the bucket compared to what most systems have these days.
Yep.
The fact, it just astounds me, the computing resources they had on, like, the moon vehicles, all the different rockets and stuff they sent to the moon.
Oh,
it's
sure.
like, how on earth did you write all this complicated code? And
it was slide rules and transistors.
And lots of clerks handwriting out the calculations.
All doing the same calculation and making sure they all got the same answer. And if somebody was off, they'd do it all again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you really, really have to micro-optimize that code. You can't use any more memory than you just have to scrunch it down as much as you possibly can.
That was like 60 years ago.
It was in the 60s, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Feel old yet? This is Moon now.
Is it impending?
Yeah. Missed opportunity for the Majora's Mask episode. Oh well.
There's multiple possible titles that would work just fine.
Yeah.
They're all just as dumb.
Yeah.
But some of them are dumb in a more clever way.
Yeah.
I like clever
As
dumb.
contradictory as that statement might be.
I realize it's contradictory, and that's why I thought it was funny.
Yet it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how many contradictory
Oxymorons
statements make sense.
It's,
Something can be an instant classic, even though it takes time and to become a classic. You know,
Yep.
It's like people throw around those kinds of phrases all the time.
I love reading through lists of oxymorons because
Jumbo shrimp.
yeah. Let's see. Well, because a lot of them is like you take them for granted, but they're kind of funny when you think about them a little harder. Let's see. I can't think of any off the top of my head, even though there's plenty.
It's the funny thing is when you have to think of something off the top of your head, it never shows up.
Yeah. Or maybe that's just me. I don't know.
I've experienced that also.
Um,
Particularly, well, it's really bad when I'm about to do a test and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm blanking because I'm dumb and I mean obviously study and do the homework and stuff, but like you show up and it's like, wait a minute,
I have no memories.
which one was
of
the
this
zero
place.
state response? There are like serious points like up at stake here, and I don't want to get which one the zero state response is wrong. But right now, I forget whether I solve this way or that way to get this. So, you know.
Yeah. That was basically anytime I did chemistry tests, I'd be like, I knew this. Where'd it go?
The thing went on fire in the lab, and I wrote that down.
Yep. I did so much better in the lab than I did in the test.
Dude, labs are fun. There's fire.
True.
Sometimes
Well,
there's a lot of water.
A lot of water, too.
With
One of my favorite-
with minute proportions of acid stuff in there.
Indeed.
My favorite chemistry
Basic chemistry, you know.
my favorite chemistry experiment I did was probably where you just worked copper through these different solutions, ending with where you added, I forget what the compound was, and you got the pure copper to precipitate out of the solution. What
Ending
looks like
with
a clear
I
solution,
forget
and you
what
just
it was. Meaning you did a really good job learning.
I
Lead
just know we got
iodide
pure
is-
copper out of it.
Yeah. I think lead iodide is my favorite precipitate.
Is it the
It's
purple
very-
one?
It's the yellow one.
Ah.
The one that looks like the inside of a marble.
Marbles are trippy. If you ever look at them, like how on earth did they get that thing in there? Is what I used to wonder as a
I
kid.
saw a video on my YouTube recommended about how marbles are made, and I almost clicked on it. But then I realized I have things to do. Papers. I have way too many papers to write, and I'm only having more papers to write coming.
No
on my
YouTube
horizon.
rabbit holes, not right now. Anyway,
But
Can't
I
have
really
that.
but I really want to.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's glass.
watch
It's
later,
glasses.
baby. My watch later playlist is full of guitar tutorials I have not gotten around to because I'm lazy. I just keep playing the songs I know instead of learning new stuff.
I don't like the watch later playlist. I never take advantage
I
of it.
never save stuff to my watch later.
Yeah. If it is like, sometimes it'll be like, oh, I'll watch that later, and then I'll immediately remove it. But in general, it's like, no, I don't want to give YouTube more information than I'm already giving them.
Well, for me, it's usually channels I'm already subscribed to. Like, I don't have time to watch this right now, but I do want to watch this, so I'll save it for later.
See, I watched Smaller Columbo like twice, and now I just have oodles and oodles of Columbo clips being recommended to me. This is like every fourth video is a Columbo clip, and I'm like, YouTube, stop. I watched a meme. Let me.
And
I
that
don't
on
want to
mobile
watch
too,
it.
where there's like the little autoplay thing. If you hover over a video too long, it's like if you're scrolling past a Family Guy or Simpsons clip or something, your feed is just going to be nuked with clips of that.
Yeah. I mean, they
Well,
give
here's-
you ways to filter down different topics now, which is nice, but
Still, who's going to actually put the work into that?
Well, here's the thing. When I saved the
well, it's just like a button click on the top row
Oh.
that filters down to certain topics.
mhm.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
When I saved YouTube as a favorite in my browser, I just saved the subscription page as YouTube. So I just go there and I have the things I'm intentionally looking for.
Yeah.
I don't have to slog through the main page where it's trying to recommend me Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Good
no,
grief.
I don't care.
Nobody likes Jimmy
It
Kimmel.
saves me a button click. I don't have to go to YouTube and then go to the subscriptions, which I actually care about.
with comedy?
I
I
think
just go
the
directly to
channels I
subscriptions.
watch the most, I am not subscribed to. Mostly, I subscribe to things for promos and crap.
Ah,
So
I subscribe mostly because I feel guilty.
because they keep begging for it.
Yeah.
and because you know, as a YouTube person yourself, that those are important metrics for your channel's growth.
Correct.
Big number give dopamine.
Ooh, big number. And like half a cent per however many
Give me the garbage.
dozens of subscribers. Speaking of garbage, I pick up a lot of garbage when I'm playing. I started playing Fallout 4 yesterday. No, 2 days ago.
Ooh,
that
have you
treating you?
found dog meat yet?
I have found dog meat. Yeah.
Dog meat is good dog.
Yes. I've barely gotten into like the first like hour or so of gameplay. Like I've gotten into like the gas station and then the first like encounter with like the Minutemen or whatever in that museum. So that's about it. It's the first Bethesda game I've played. So it's a little bit of a learning curve.
That's right.
I haven't played any like
for you, Fallout's probably a good place to start because Skyrim's mechanics are really kind of janky. If you've never experienced a first-person
Non-shooter.
right?
Yeah. You can play Fallout third person, but it looks weird, so I
it
don't.
looks weird, and it's not designed to be played that way.
I don't know what it was, but like when I was doing the character creation, the head model looked fine, and then when I go into the game, it's like, why is the head so small? It just kind of looked funny to me. But I mean, it's fun. It's just like, okay, this is going to be a lot more work than I'm used to in games just to
Yeah.
progress. There's a lot to unpack and a lot of stuff to rummage through and dialogue trees.
Oh,
But-
dialogue is the most fun part of it.
True. You get to talk to Codsworth. Your butler robot. He's fun. Yeah, like only scratched the surface of the game so far. And I fought like a few enemies in the first town. And I'm like, so this is what the difficulty curve is going to be like, huh?
Was it really hard?
Well, like the regular like raider people, not really, but there was this monster that was in the town and it took forever to kill it. And all of my ammo that I had, I was like, it's going to be one of those games.
You get a bigger gun.
Welcome to Bethesda games.
It's about leveling up and getting crafting stuff and stuff.
Yep.
You'll just get a bigger gun later. It's fine.
It's like Skyrim putting the first dragon outside of Helgen immediately right up your face.
Yeah.
Here's
It's like a,
big
hey.
enemy, so that when you can one-shot these things later on, you'll feel really strong.
I'm powerful.
Which isn't. That's a good like method of like giving you a benchmark for your growth.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, you're impossible to fight in this early section of the game. Then you come back and it's like, oh, I could fight 4 of you at the same time. No biggie.
There's a couple of mechanics where I accidentally skipped the menu and I'm like, crap, how do I do this?
Well, don't skip the menu.
I don't even know how I did it. But like hacking, I'm like, what am I supposed to, guessing the
you
password
play-
or whatever?
Yeah,
You move the
you have
pipes.
some experience with video game hacking, don't you?
Isn't it the most
not
fun
that
part
kind
of any
hacking.
video game you've ever played?
At least the
making a
computer doesn't
Bioshock
like
reference.
zap you when you fail in this game. At least not yet. The lock picking is fairly easy to figure out. You just
Yep.
have to get a lot of bobby pins.
It's a standard Bethesda game lockpicking system, except, well, it's more along Skyrim's lines than it is Oblivion's.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
Speaking
Well,
of
no-
Oblivion, we're talking about something where they go into the wild blue yonder. We're the Palladium Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
and I'm Riley.
And today's philosophical episode will be on the Pixar film Up.
In a world where one man will decide whether to pull a lever and kill one man, or not pull a lever and allow 5 people to die, find out in Philosophical.
So yes, philosophical, where we get philosophical about films.
The wild blue yonder is not Oblivion. Those are wildly different things.
True.
Oblivion is nothingness,
It's
non-being.
utter destruction and non-being.
Or a mediocre
Blue Yonder
movie
is
with Tom
pure
Cruise.
opportunity.
Or a fantastic video game by Bethesda.
But we aren't talking about any of those things. We are talking about Up, which is the 2009, holy crap, Pixar film. Isn't that crazy? 12 years ago. Yeah. So you have young Carl Fredricksen, who is growing up in like the 30s, 40s, and he has this hero who is this explorer named what's his Charles Muntz. Charles Muntz. Muntz,
M-U-N-T-Z.
German name, whatever. His hero is this guy, Charles Muntz, who is an explorer who flies around to exotic places in his airship with his specially trained dog servants. And he's after this bird creature that keeps eluding him because he brought back a skeleton and showed it to these scientists, and they're like, oh, this is fake, so he's been discredited and all that stuff. So he goes back, promising never to return until he finds this burb. And so young Carl idolizes this guy. You know, he watches the newsreels because it's whatever decade this is. And he walks on his way home from the movie theater. He walks by, daydreaming about adventure. He walks by this abandoned house, and inside there is he hears somebody messing around, and there's this young girl, Ellie, who is also wearing a flight helmet like Russell, no, not Russell, he comes later, like Carl is, and talking about adventure and Charles Muntz and all that stuff. So they strike up a friendship after Carl breaks his arm. But they strike up a friendship, dreaming of going on adventures together. And when they grow up,
They go on adventure together.
They go on adventure together. They get married. And the whole introduction, 10 or so minute long introduction, it's just peak Pixar storytelling with no dialogue of their life story. And it's we'll get into that in the beauty segment, but it's pretty great. So over the course of their married life together, they rebuild the old house that he'd met Ellie in and make it their own. They try to have a family, but, have a miscarriage and deal with infertility and all that stuff, and it's rough. But they shift focus from that adventure to actually going on that adventure to Paradise Falls, which is the place where, in South America somewhere, where Charles Muntz disappeared to. He still hasn't come back yet. So as time goes on, they keep saving up money.
Then keep running into issues that cause them to spend money.
Yeah, so it just never comes around
They
to
keep
it.
putting it off.
And finally, they're reaching kind of retirement age, and Carl finally gets up the gumption, saves up money, and buys them plane tickets to go to South America, so they can finally go on this adventure. But then his wife Ellie, at this point they're in their 60s, 70s, falls ill and sadly passes away. So they never got to go on that adventure together.
The end.
Yeah. And they all died, the end. So Carl is now living on his own the old house is slowly being, what used to be like an idyllic middle American neighborhood is now being taken over by the big city. He's got all these huge construction projects literally going on right outside his property. And so he's holding out against these big developers who want to tear down his house so they can build their skyscrapers or whatever. In an argument with one of these construction worker guys, he loses his temper and hits him with his cane, which, they sue him for. And basically the court's like, all right, you got to go to a nursing home there, bud. He's like, well, I don't want to go to a nursing home. He remembers the adventure he wanted to go on with Ellie. He resolves to do something about it. Meanwhile, there's this young scout boy named Russell who shows up at Mr. Fredrickson's store, and he's like, hey, I need to get this patch for assisting the elderly. Is there anything you need assistance with today? And Carl's like, no, go away. He's kind of grumpy old man. Russell is not easily put off, though. He just sort of has this plucky perseverance to him, if albeit a little clueless and ditzy, but kind of a lovable character. So, very loud motorcycle outside. I don't know.
Wow, isn't he cool?
Wow. Anyway, so to distract Russell, he's like, okay, yeah, there's this snipe or whatever. Go catch it for me. It's been eating my flowers. Trying to get rid of him. And so that happened, and then like the whole court deal, and now Carl is preparing himself, for what the world or what everybody else thinks is him going to the nursing home. So the nursing home guys show up, and they're like, all right, Mr. Fredrickson, you ready to go? He's like, yeah, I just wanted to say one last goodbye to the old place. But really what he does is unleashes hundreds of helium balloons, and the house lifts off its foundations and flies away. So he's turned his house into a giant helium airship. He's going to fly off to Paradise Falls.
Don't question the physics. Give in to the whimsy.
Yes, it's quite whimsical. So he's flying off, but then he realizes, wait, I'm not the only person here. Russell was he was looking for the snipe under the porch when the house lifted off, so he grabbed on. He's like, can I come in? At first, Carl's like, no. Wait, I suppose you have nowhere else to go. Okay, come on, come in.
We're literally in the sky.
Yeah.
We're ready to go.
So Carl's like, okay, well, I suppose I got to find a place to touch down so we can get rid of you and send you back home. Because he doesn't want this kid tagging along. But they get caught up in a storm and eventually end up in South America. Right near Paradise Falls, in fact. So they get ready to land, and because of the storm and some damage incurred, the balloons are losing their helium. So they land further away from the Paradise Falls, spot from the postcard where he and Ellie had always planned to, put up their house and live up happily ever after. Not heavily. So they realize, okay, well, we're on the ground now. We have to kind of pull the house with us to the destination. So they make their way through the South American jungle.
Still hovering, a good 4 feet off the ground, but
Yep.
just not flying, not airworthy.
Yep. So
It's called floating with style.
yep. They're tugging along with the garden hose that's dangling down. So as they're walking along through the forest, pulling the house with them, Russell, he's a kid. He's kind of bored, just walking along and kind of annoying Carl. Along the way, we meet Russell runs into this huge bird that likes his chocolate. And so he becomes friends with the bird, and he brings it back to Carl. And he's like, hey, can we keep it? Holy crap, that thing's huge. No, we can't keep it. But the bird won't go away, so they just take it along with them anyway. They also run into this golden retriever, Doug, who can talk through a electric collar in his...
Collar
in his,
on his neck.
On his neck, yeah.
Where callers go.
Yep. And which that seems kind of familiar. So we just turns out Doug is one of Charles Munt's, who's still alive, one of his servant dogs, because he built these custom collars so his dogs could talk. And so his top, totally not henchman dogs, catch up to Doug because they've been out hunting for the bird, who Russell has affectionately named Kevin. So the dogs are out to find the bird, and Doug, being the derpy little golden retriever that he is like, oh please, oh please, oh please, would you be my prisoner? And Russell's like, ooh, another pet. And Carl's like, no. So they're continuing to make their way along until the top dogs show up and demand to take them all back to Charles Munson's airship. The bird, Kevin's off hiding somewhere though, so they're like, you got to tell us where he is. So they bring him back. And they meet with Charles Muntz, and Carl's all starstruck because, wow, my childhood hero, he's really alive. He's here. And, you know, Charles is all hospitable and stuff. He's like, here, park your airship next to mine. You want to come and take a look at my airship and have dinner with me and stuff? And he's like, after dinner, he's like, okay, so I hear tell of a bird. You wouldn't... You know, there's other people who showed up on this part of the world looking for birds, and people can go missing when they're after my prize, if you take my meaning. And Carl's like, ooh, there's more to this childhood hero of mine than I initially thought. He seems kind of bad news. Let's get out of here. Of course, Russell, being the derpy little boy he is, accidentally lets slip that they know where the bird is. And so now, Muntz is like, all right, let's get him. So they run away with the house to try to get away from Charles Muntz and protect Kevin, who turns out is also trying to protect her babies. Kevin is a girl. And Doug, you know, he's made new friends because these other dogs aren't very nice to him. He's like, you're my master now. So they run away from Charles and get chased around and stuff and get away for a little bit until... they eventually get caught up to by Charles and his dogs, who tries to burn down the house. And when given the choice to help Russell save Kevin or save his house, Carl picks the house, and Russell's all distraught with that because, you know, Kevin's his friend.
Hello, James and Nathan from the future here. Technical difficulties. We lost the end of our synopsis, so
Yes.
We're coming at you after the fact with just the wrap up here.
Yep. So yeah, Carl has a chance to choose between saving his house from Charles or saving Kevin, and chooses the house, which leaves Russell quite distraught. So after Charles Muntz gets away with Kevin, they manage to get the house to the spot in Paradise Falls where they'd always dreamed, or Carl and Ellie had always dreamed of putting the house. And Carl sits down ready to enjoy his, you know, Paradise Falls experience.
Or what he believes is his dream.
Yeah.
And of course, Russell's all distraught, like, no, we got to go save Kevin. And Carl's like, I don't care.
I didn't ask for any of this.
And so Russell runs away to save Kevin by himself, and Carl sits in his chair and feels empty.
Yep. And he comes across the scrapbook that Ellie had made talking about their adventure they were going to have. And he discovers that, you know,
he
when
thought
they
it
were
was
young.
empty this whole time. He was like, I'm sorry I never got to go on that adventure.
But then he discovers that there are pictures and other things in here. And it turns out over the course of their life together, Ellie had put together the scrapbook of memories from their marriage. So it turns out like
her adventure scrapbook was the life she lived with Carl.
Yeah. And so at the very end of the scrapbook, she left a note for him saying, now go have yourself a new adventure, or something along those lines. So Carl realizes, you know, that he needs to move on. And, you know, there's more to live for now than his old dreams. And Ellie would have wanted him to move on. And she did. So he symbolically and practically dumps out all the old furniture and stuff from the house to make it lighter so he can fly it off, because Muntz is off in this airship flying away with Kevin, and Russell flies up to the airship and gets captured trying to rescue rescue Kevin. So Carl flies the house and chases down the airship because physics, and that gets onto the ship where he manages to free Russell and Kevin, trick the dog servant goons into locking them into a room, and gets into a showdown with Muntz. So yeah, they have like this duel where Charles has a sword and Carl has his cane, and they're dueling, and they both get their backs stuck because they're old and they can't quite swing around like they used to. And so in the showdown, they get to the point where the house is teetering on the edge, and Charles kind of has to choose between Carl has to choose between saving Russell and Kevin and Doug, or the house. I mean, they're in the house, but they're hanging on to the garden hose or whatever, and the only way you can save them is letting the house go. Mm-hmm. So it breaks off, and Charles gets tangled up in some balloons and so falls to his death.
Like a Disney
villain fashion.
They save Kevin. They release her back into the wild.
She's able to reunite with her babies and keep the species going. Because she's a rare bird.
Then Carl and Russell fly the blimp back to
America with no questions asked when this airship from 40 years ago shows up without the guy who owned it. But that's neither here nor there. So Carl and Russell have become friends. He's sort of a new grandfather figure to Russell. And he's able to, do these things that Russell never got to do with his dad, like eating ice cream on the corner and counting the red cars and the blue cars as they go by, like silly little things like that. And so, they live kind of happily ever after together.
Mm-hmm. And that is the end of our synopsis. We return you to our regularly recorded
scheduled
programming.
Yes.
Let's take it away, Past and James and Nathan.
Ghosts of podcasters
you
past.
Handsome devils, you. I'm not.
Getting real meta with this re-recording.
Well, what else would we do?
Yeah.
That's
anyway, we're gonna stop Statler Waldorf ourselves and get back to it. Take it away.
Thank you, future James and Nathan,
for fixing weird computer stuff.
Well, not fixing it, but recording over. That's dumb. Anyway.
So
we're back.
Anyway.
With the, what do we like about it?
So we were just talking about how Up is kind of fundamentally different from the other Pixar movies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And honestly, like, over the course of Pixar's history, you start with Toy Story and Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, more Toy Story, Cars. This is sort of peak of 2000s Pixar, in my opinion. Even though, there's a long list of great movies.
It might be some of the more complex and mature. Maybe not I don't know. But it just has a different flavor profile to it.
Yeah.
Based from the other Pixar stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say Grounded, and then I realized that doesn't fit at all.
Yeah.
Right.
But in a certain way it does.
I mean, it's one of the few Pixar films that, stars all humans, for the most part.
Mm-hmm. And Doug is a very good boy.
Right.
Doug is a very good boy. But
they aren't
the points of interest are, all humans.
Right. I mean, and then they don't have crazy superpowers or they aren't monsters. They're just human people that happen to live in a world where you can get a house to float on helium balloons.
Yep.
For thousands of miles.
Yep.
Yep. Being steered only by a weather vane on top of the roof.
It's
being
whimsical.
moved. It's whimsical, but the engineer in me was like, no. Maybe that's one of the reasons why it isn't one of my personal favorites. It's like I can't suspend my disbelief for it. It's fun, and it's like the sequences where they're flying around in the house are fun, and the characters are really cool and well written and stuff. But that hang up of that doesn't work.
Just the weather vane wrecks it for you.
It's a thing. It's something I can't get over myself enough about.
We went through all of Howl's Moving Castle. None of that bugged you.
Well,
it's hand-drawn animation really changes how that feels.
Sure.
Also, it's not balloons and strings holding a whole house. That's a full steampunk house.
It's not a nearly plausible thing. It's a almost pretty much not plausible whatsoever thing.
It's a cartoon.
Anyway.
I think where Pixar has, I guess, ironically, Up ironically has a sort of weight to the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very human story. It deals with things like, dreams and getting older and, not really accomplishing those dreams in the same way that you'd hoped when you were young.
But turns out that the real dreams are the friends we made along the way.
Yeah. In a manner of speaking, yes. Because, you start off the movie and like Carl and Ellie, they have these grand dreams of going off on a great adventure to South America and being explorers. And that doesn't really pan out the way they thought. But the thing about life, though, is it has a funny way of those things happen to... They still happen, but not in the way you expected.
And Ellie, you can see from the first opening montage, she has this real joie de vivre to her, where she's kind of a free spirit where she kind of wants to go out and explore, but she has found her adventure in Carl. Right?
Yep.
She takes great enthusiasm in just the day-to-day average ordinary stuff. Mm-hmm. Or Carl's a bit more of a pessimist who's like, I want to do the big things with you.
Yeah. And the whole adventure flying the house away to South America, the whole deal with that is, and staying in this house, defying the skyscrapers being built around him, is he doesn't want to let go of that adventure he could have had with Ellie. And so,
the rest of the world is moving onward and upward without him. Mm-hmm.
And in a very real sense, he doesn't want to let go of Ellie.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's got a photo of her in her house that he still talks to,
which is understandable.
Yeah, because it's relatively recently he lost her. So
the depth of their relationship and its longevity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, because they were never able to have kids, he doesn't really have anything else to live for at this point.
There's really no other family he's been able to have.
So this is all he's got left to hang on to. So, but then over the course of the movie, he discovered, it's sort of his ability to find closure despite all of that. He's able to realize, Ellie and I had our adventure, and she wanted me, to move on and continue living life. So, Carl letting go of the house, quite literally, and
his old life.
Yeah.
His old wife and his old life.
Yep. Carl, he lets go of the house and his old life and stuff, and accepts and embraces Russell and Doug and Kevin. He's able to help bring Kevin back to his family and his habitat, or I guess her family and habitat and stuff. And so perform a selfless act. Well, he destroys his dream and also his role model, in a manner of speaking.
Which this is a never meet your heroes kind of moment, but also this is a guy who was very stuck on one failure and unwilling to move past it.
Yep.
And
That's sort of
Takes-
a sort of similar lack of fulfillment about a dream that is just out of his reach. You know,
Right. He
regaining his
loses-
credibility, because if he could just get that bird, never mind the fact these things are going extinct.
he loses the one thing he valued most, picked up everything, and went to South America.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't come back,
Yep.
which is something Carl was just about to do.
Yeah. I think he's able to see, like, in the unhingedness of Charles Muntz, how that could easily happen to him. And I get one kind of neat little note at the end of the movie is how, you know, you just see the house disappear below the clouds. But the house, it turns out, comes to rest on Paradise Falls, right in the spot where they'd marked in the picture. So, sort of signifying that Charles's dream had, in fact, been fulfilled.
Carl's.
Or Carl.
Yeah, Charles is very unresolved.
And Charles is also, they're derived from the same root name.
Yep.
Which is interesting.
Thanks for nothing, Charlemagne. Everybody's named after you. Anyway. Yeah. So yeah, his dream is fulfilled. Maybe not in the same way he thought, but also Russell in a similar sort of way.
Well, he's this young, adventurous lad
Mm-hmm.
who wants to, you know, have these adventures with somebody.
Yep.
Doesn't have
And,
a
you know, he's
somebody
a
to have
scout.
those
Like, he's
adventures
gotten
with.
all the patches except for this one. He's chasing after these achievements, but what he really wants is connection with a father figure, which he hasn't been able to get up to this point with his own dad. And so in Carl, like, it starts off, you know, he's just trying to get this badge by helping.
Where
Carl.
Carl's kind of a means to an end, not an end into himself.
Right. But by the end of it, yeah, he becomes like a real friend and helps Carl in ways that neither of them could have understood. Yeah. I'd say those are some of the major themes of Up.
Yeah.
The main points of discussion, I suppose. Let's see. What else do we like about Up?
I personally am enthralled by the whimsy of it.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
just the entire
The sound-
mood and presentation and the soundscape and all of it. It's very charming.
Very well put together.
Which we'll get
It's
into,
just-
I suppose.
it's as a piece of film, it kind of rivals a lot of your well-known live-action films in terms of how well it's able to tell a story and the way it studies its characters and addresses issues, personal and systemic, and it's all just great.
I think, you know, Pixar's had some pretty good films since then. I don't know if anything is quite, if you'll excuse the pun, risen to the level of Up
Not
since
since then.
or at least nothing is coming to mind.
I feel like in terms of pure artistic quality,
Certainly.
like I think Wall-E comes close just because of
Yep.
how effectively it told a story with minimal anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first 10 minutes of Up, imagine that, but it's a whole movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, but
And
that has less like story and character work and more just pure animation storytelling, which is
Inside Out was pretty good, but it was quite a bit more abstract with the themes it was discussing.
which that makes sense
'Cause it's of
because
the
its
mind.
characters are abstract concepts.
Yep. Cars 2.
Yes.
Yes, the artistic greatness,
Of
classic
Cars
known as Cars 2.
In association with Pixar's Planes.
Fire and Rescue.
Yeah.
That's like the one directed DVD.
Fly the rescue helicopter.
Hey!
Hey!
Hey! I mean, Ratatouille is also really good, but I think that came out before this, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. So, yeah, Up is probably one of the best if not the best Pixar film that's come out to date, in my opinion. Finding Nemo was pretty good. Ratatouille was really good. So those are like the top 3, I'd say.
Honestly, then you also got Incredibles. And
Oh,
I really like
yeah,
Monsters,
of course,
Inc.
Incredibles. Incredibles 2 is great.
They're consistent.
Yeah.
Or they were very consistent between 2000
Forgot about
and
How could I forget about
2010.
Incredibles? Yeah.
Recently, it's been less consistent, but still mostly good.
Yeah.
I haven't seen...
Onward was pretty good.
Oh, their most recent one was the
Luca.
Luca,
Yeah, I haven't
which
seen
came
it.
out on Disney Plus.
Yeah,
Which
let's
it
get
looks
around
like
to
it's
watching
probably
that.
a good one. Anyway,
Anyhow.
we're talking about those. Let's get
Nope.
back to on topic.
So, should we get into transcendental analysis?
Suppose.
I was just looking at what we have for time, and I'm like, oh wait,
It's off.
they cut like 10, 15 minutes.
They don't
out
know
of this.
that, Nathan.
They do because they already listened to the part we re-recorded.
Fine.
We're recording this before we re-record.
Truth.
Welcome
What
to
elements of truth are there in Up, not our podcasting methods? And what we may or may not have done because of computer errors. What are some truths in Up that we can dig out of it?
You should move on from things when they merit being moved on from.
It is better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. As it were.
But also you have to recognize when, something happens and a phase of your life is gone that you should let go of it.
And I think Up is almost like it's sort of a metaphor for like the grieving process somewhat in different ways from how other films have approached it. What does it really mean to move on? Does it mean like, okay, finally getting that bucket list item done? Or I think what the film says is acknowledging, in Carl's case, the great life he had, the beautiful wife he had, letting her go, but hanging on to her memory in a way that honors her.
Mm-hmm.
And continuing to live in the spirit of their relationship.
Yep.
One of the things that brought them together was this notion of adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a real opportunity to continue that in a different way, but
And Ellie,
still...
she always pushed him to be better. Well, and like outside of his comfort zone. And without her, you start to see him regress a little bit back into his timidity, not, being willing to move on. But then, being re-inspired by the scrapbook, he's able to, live in the spirit of how Ellie would have wanted him to live.
Mm-hmm.
By seeking new adventure instead of hanging on to the ideas of the old. So yeah. Goodness. There's a lot of goodness in Up.
Well, I think there's some more true things we can talk about.
Oh, okay.
Like,
All right.
never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
You will come to realize that they too are flawed human beings, and
not everything about them is
Glamorous.
really what you would have painted in your head. Maybe.
Yeah.
You idolize people, and people aren't idolizable most of the time.
Months wasn't really all about the adventure as much as it was the glory. And that lost glory, that sort of being discredited, is what drives him basically to madness, to the point of, like getting rid of people who stand in his way. Like killing these strangers who show up and have nothing to do with, what he's trying to do. And that's sort of a parallel to Carl to an extent. Like he drives away Kevin and Russell and Doug because they're getting in the way of his dream, but then he sees how
hollow and shallow his dream ended up being,
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't out of love for his wife.
Mm-hmm.
It was out of self-pity,
Yeah.
and that's not a way to live.
Well, and the place is called Paradise Falls, right? Like how many people throughout history have, fallen into folly and error in the pursuit of a paradise here on Earth,
Paradise Lost.
Yeah, as it were. So that little motif there is interesting as well. And only in letting go of these things is he able to find, or able to achieve that sort of, not paradise, but better place, in his life.
And it's interesting that only after, like at the end, as the end card fades away, you see the idyllic Paradise Falls image he had in his mind fall into place after he moved on.
Only by
and
letting
started
go
a new
was he able
adventure.
to achieve his dream. I keep saying letting go, but
This isn't Frozen.
no.
That's a different movie.
A
But-
movie that we'll probably never talk about.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Sorry.
Unless you
not
pay
sorry.
us a lot of money.
Yes.
Disney, you listening?
I mean, of course they are, but no. James is no longer on the podcast for not wanting to
Or-
talk. Anyway.
Or if you want to submit us an email at
Yeah, there are other non-Disney ways of getting us to do things, I guess.
Give me a reason to watch the second one, maybe. I don't know.
Anyway, let's continue talking about an actually good movie. Up. Any other? Yeah. So don't meet your heroes. I mean, you can. Like, don't take that literally, but don't put them on a pedestal that they don't deserve. Because I mean,
Let people continue.
oh, yeah. I mean, I was just gonna say, like, people. Your heroes will never be as good as you make them out to be, or as evil as their critics make them out to be. They'll be somewhere in between.
Well, this guy was definitely evil. But...
Right.
And some people are a whole lot worse than you think going into it. It's like, oh, you were hiding that for 10 years? Mm-hmm. Ew.
Yeah. So, what were you gonna say, Riley?
I said, let people into your life.
Yeah.
When they come knocking on your door and they're kind of searching for a way to help you, it's important to allow them to.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think we have this tendency to, as Americans, to want to do stuff on our own. I'm okay, whenever people ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine. But just like
You just have to say
acknowledge
you're fine
that
when you're not really fine, but they couldn't understand. I don't forget what that clip is from.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Some
But
reality
anyway.
TV show.
I think so.
Anyway.
But yeah,
People
like,
need
well, because
people
even that guy that like Carl whacks with his cane, like, that like a piece of machinery had bumped into his mailbox that he and Ellie made. He was just trying to fix it and like make up for it. Carl lashes out at him, and then Russell quite literally knocks on the door of his house, offering to assist him, and he blows him off until he's forced to like accept Carl's help, or not Carl, Russell.
It's like a total of 5 characters. in
I
the
know, and
movie.
I still can't keep them straight. I've seen the movie I don't know how many times. But yeah, he's sort of forced to accept Russell and Doug and Kevin kind of reluctantly, but then comes to embrace them. Any other truths we want to talk about? Goodness. What is good in Up? Besides Doug, who was a very good boy.
He's like, very good.
Ellie,
Ellie is also very good.
Yes.
a character who never speaks,
Well,
is like
except for the very beginning.
When she's a child.
almost no dialogue, has some of the most profound impact on the thematic material of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's
the movie's
her
essentially
joy-
about her almost.
Mm-hmm.
her joy for life is just kind of makes you want to go do something adventurous.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's paint your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's her simplicity and her finding joy in the everyday things of life.
Because as long as she can do it with Carl, it's an adventure. And it's just great.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
And then, of course, there's the kind of father figure father-son figure relationship that grows between Carl and
Russell.
Russell. Thank you. Now you got me doing it. Like, wait, I've got to check the list of characters to make sure I'm saying the right one.
Russell is a good kid. He's had a little bit of a tough time, but he's got that spirit of adventure in him, and he also just genuinely wants to be the best at everything. As evidenced by, like
getting all the patches.
Yeah. But
I don't know that he wants to be the best at everything so much as he wants to be excellent.
Yes. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
And also on some level win approval.
Yeah.
When that's not something you should need to win.
Mm-hmm. And even though and that's kind of evidenced by he's sort of trumping himself up to be like this great wilderness explorer. He's got a fancy GPS and this tent and all this cool gear that makes him a good explorer, but one by one those things start to peel away and you realize what he's really after is not like the GPS, which he accidentally throws out the window, or the tent, which smacks him in the face and goes flying off into a cavern. What he's really after is that sort of connection and that validation and that affirmation that he hasn't really been able to get yet in his life. And Carl eventually warms up and is able to provide that for him.
He's able to come out of himself enough to provide that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ed Asner, may he rest in peace, did a really good job voicing Carl. No idea who the Russell kid is. So I guess we can get into the beauty. It's a Pixar movie, so the animation, and over time, it was gradually developing as the technology developed. But this is really where they start to hit their where the films just started to look really beautiful.
And on one hand, it's the really impressive effects they can do, and the really impressive technical power they have behind the computers running it.
But it's also the artistry.
The art.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really great just artistic characterization. There's a language of shapes in character design, right?
Yep.
Where a very square person may be very sturdy or very stubborn.
Yep.
And Carl's a big square guy.
Yep.
Whereas someone who's very round is very approachable, very outgoing, very cuddly.
Yeah,
and that's
Ellie
Russell.
and Russell.
And Ellie has kind of a very round face and round glasses and stuff.
Triangular is sort of shifty and
dangerous and not to be trusted. And guess what? Charles Munt's point is
and his dog.
They're very angular.
In fact, I think his top dog is a jackal, which is sort of known in the Middle East and stuff is sort of this predator, sneaky predator.
So not only is it top of the line 2009 animation on the best computers 2009 had to offer, but the artistic direction had this character to it. It had this whimsy to it. Mm-hmm. The house is all uneven, odd angles and stuff.
Yep.
The house itself
bright and
has
colorful.
a character to it.
Yeah.
It's yellow and with blue roof and stuff. So it's not only visually spectacular, but visually interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that nice middle section where the animation won't ever date itself.
Yeah. It's kind of hit that sweet spot. And I think with Pixar, as time developed, and the technology developed, it really just allowed them to be more of themselves with their artistic expression and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Make more visually stunning and artful and meaningful film. The soundtrack is great. The theme from Up, every once in a while I'll remember it and it'll be stuck in my head for a while.
And there's just a lot of sequences in this movie where there's not a lot of dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously there's the opening sequence we've referenced, but there's while they're flying to South America in the house, there's just kind of the sequence of them flying and Russell and Carl not getting along.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of... This movie knows when to slow down.
Yeah.
And to take its time and to set a mood.
Mm-hmm. And
it knows when to crank it back up into the main story. It doesn't feel slow,
Yep.
but it has a really relaxed pacing.
Mm-hmm.
It just allows you to just kind of vibe with it, you know?
The thing about the opening sequence is that if you've ever watched like Pixar shorts, the amount of storytelling they're able to do with just music and visuals.
If you ever watched again Wall-E too.
Yeah. There's just the music and the visuals and the storytelling and the pacing of that opening sequence just really, it's probably the best montage ever made.
That's Pixar in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Like dialogue-less storytelling, and it makes you cry at the end.
Yeah.
Because
And the movie's only just started.
It made me cry at the beginning.
well,
Yeah.
In the middle.
At the end.
And the end.
At the end of the beginning of the sequence, anyway. The whole
Yeah.
thing.
First time I ever watched Up was like my little brother's birthday, like way back, like when it came out, pretty much.
First time I watched Up
And I was like, whoa, this is way more than I was expecting from this movie.
Um,
This is really good.
was
I was like 12.
I was probably it came.
Yeah, we were
It was
12.
probably around the same time.
We were
because
12.
It came out in
We-
2009.
Unless it came out at some point during June or July, in which case maybe not all of us were 12.
Well, I watched it on Netflix first.
We were
I think it was a year
tweens.
after it came out, because first time I saw it was when we moved up to the DL area.
Uh-huh.
Dad had been living in the house he bought for a couple weeks on his own because we were in the process of moving everything, and Dad had work up here.
Yep.
But we first time at the house, we set up a mattress in the middle of what is now the living room, and watched Up on Netflix. That's the first time I saw it.
Mm-hmm. Where were you when Carl Fredricksen was up? Yeah. Unity. What brings everything together in Up?
Adventure.
Yeah. Adventure is out there.
And it takes a different form than you expect.
Mm-hmm.
Adventure is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means
Precisely
to.
when he means.
So, yeah.
It's
We also arrive precisely when we mean to.
Yeah.
well, maybe
yeah.
not when we mean to, but
Sure.
That's a bold-faced line, you know.
we know it full well. So if you want to hear bold-faced lies, thanks for listening to the play. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at PalPapus. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints about our bold-faced lies or suggestions for future episodes,
For future bold-faced lies.
yeah, email us at palladiumpapus@gmail.com. We'll talk to you guys again next week. Bye.
bye.
See ya.